A grandfather wires $175,000, his grandson's college fund, into what he is told is the comeback of RadioShack. He will never see a cent of it again. The SEC now alleges YouTuber Ty Lopez ran a $112 million Ponzi scheme, luring 660 investors with promises of 25% returns. RadioShack survived 94 years. How it became the shell for alleged fraud starts long before anyone promised to save it. In 1921, two brothers opened a cramped storefront at 462 Franklin Street in Boston, selling crystal radios and spare parts to the growing crowd of amateur radio enthusiasts. Theodore and Milton Deutschman stocked their shelves with vacuum tubes, antenna wire, and hand-wound coils, everything a hobbyist needed to catch voices crackling across the airwaves. The shop's name, RadioShack, was a nod to the tiny cabins where shipboard operators once listened for distant signals. That first year, the Deutschmans ran their business as a partnership, serving a niche market that barely existed outside a handful of back rooms and basements. Their catalogue promised everything for the radio man, and by the end of the decade, word of mouth had begun to spread far beyond Boston. By the late 70s, RadioShack was everywhere, in strip malls, small towns, and on city corners. The launch of the TRS-80 computer in 1977 turned the chain into a tech destination, drawing crowds eager to tinker with the future. At its peak, RadioShack ran more than 8,000 stores and pulled in about $3 billion a year. Kids bought their first soldering irons here. Parents came for batteries, cables, and advice. In the 90s, the store's red and white sign meant possibility, a place where inventors, hobbyists, and dreamers all belonged. But behind the glow, the foundation was already starting to crack. By 2005, RadioShack's shelves were crowded with cell phones. The old mix of resistors, solder, and oddball adapters gave way to endless rows of prepaid handsets and wireless plans. The company pushed hard to outsell rivals like Best Buy, swapping out staff who knew circuit diagrams for aggressive phone salespeople on commission. On the floor, long-time employees watched regulars drift away, their questions about diodes or shortwave kits met with blank stares. Management bet everything on the mobile boom, even as early iPhone shoppers rolled their eyes at the hard sell. The store that once felt like a clubhouse for tinkerers became a place to hustle contracts. The shift brought a brief spike in phone sales, but the soul of the brand, its loyal, curious customers, walked out and didn't come back. Between 2011 and 2015, RadioShack recorded nearly $936 million in operating losses, a stretch of red ink that no amount of nostalgia could hide. The boardroom saw 6 different chief executive officers in as many years, each one promising a turnaround, each one gone before the next quarterly report. The company lurched from one failed strategy to another, burning through cash and credibility. In February 2014, a Super Bowl ad poked fun at its own irrelevance with the line the 80s called, "They want their store back," but the joke landed flat as creditors circled. Chapter 11. Bankruptcies followed. The first came in April 2015, the second in July 2020, each one stripping away more stores, more hope, and more of the brand's identity. In the vacuum left by leadership chaos and financial collapse, the door stood wide open for anyone bold enough, or reckless enough, to claim they could save what was left. Ty Lopez's pitch was everywhere, on YouTube, on Instagram, in webinars that promised ownership in American icons and the fastest route to financial freedom. He stood in a garage lined with Lamborghinis, telling viewers that RadioShack, Pier 1, and Dressbarn were not just relics, they were gold mines, waiting to be revived by the right vision and, crucially, the right investors. Alongside business partner Alex Mayer, Lopez unveiled glossy offering decks and live question and answer sessions, spelling out a simple offer: invest now and get a piece of the comeback. The hook was bold, up to 25% annual returns, paid out monthly, with the safety of real retail assets behind every dollar. The numbers behind the curtain were staggering. Over 660 people wired money between 2020 and 2024, lured by promises of quarterly payouts and guaranteed high yields. The total haul reached $112 million, much of it from retirees, small business owners, and families chasing the dream of easy, stable income. Marketing materials boasted that each investor would own a stake in a portfolio of household names, their money supposedly locked into e-commerce ventures that would never be touched for anything else. Videos and pitch decks hammered the same message. Legendary brands, revived by cutting-edge digital strategy, would throw off enough cash to fund regular distributions. Investors were shown charts projecting endless growth, testimonials from early backers, and a parade of social media posts celebrating record-breaking sales. The sales pitch moved fast, fueled by urgency, act now before the round closes, and by Lopez's own charisma, equal parts self-help guru and Wall Street rainmaker. Behind the scenes, the money flowed in at a dizzying pace. For those who bought the dream, the promise of 25% forever was about to collide with a much harsher reality. Bank records tell the real story. Money arrived from hundreds of investors, wires, checks, ACH transfers, each routed to retail e-commerce ventures accounts, then split and shuffled almost immediately. Documents from the SEC complaint lay out the chain: $112 million raised, but only a fraction ever touched the brands investors thought they owned. Instead, $5.9 million cycled back out as so-called returns paid to early investors to keep the illusion of profit alive. These were not business earnings. They were the classic hallmarks of a Ponzi payout loop, moving cash from one pocket to another to buy time and trust. Minutes from internal board meetings revealed direct approvals to transfer funds out of operating accounts and into personal ones. At least $16.1 million went straight to Lopez, Mayer, and their circle, covering luxury travel, private jets, and unrelated business ventures. Wire logs show lump sums vanishing from brand accounts and reappearing as deposits in personal trusts or shell companies. These were not isolated incidents. The SEC complaint describes a systematic process, with signatures from top executives authorizing movements that contradicted every promise made to investors. Meanwhile, the brands themselves, RadioShack, Pier 1, Dress Barn, posted no profit. Internal ledgers, later obtained by regulators, showed operating losses across the board, yet marketing materials kept touting strong cash flow and monthly distributions. The reality is every payout, every guaranteed return depended on the next wave of deposits. No retail turnaround, no e-commerce boom, just a paper trail of capital moving in circles, draining the pool dry one transaction at a time. The numbers dismantle the myth. There was never any profit to share, only a loop designed to keep the machine running until it could not anymore. Sean Murphy's affidavit reads like a warning: $175,000 wired away, 2 token payments, and a gift card as consolation. He is not alone. Dozens of similar statements now sit in court dockets, each one tracing a path from optimism to devastation. Some victims were retirees who trusted the brand. Others were small business owners hoping for a lifeline. The money vanished just as quickly for all of them. Families describe lost savings, cancelled college plans, and the kind of anxiety that lingers long after the checks stop coming. While the SEC case moves through the civil courts, the FBI has quietly launched a parallel criminal investigation. Agents have begun interviewing investors, reviewing wire logs, and piecing together the flow of funds. No indictments have been announced, but the probe remains open. At the same time, lawyers for the victims are pressing for a restitution pool, hoping to recover whatever assets remain from the shell companies and brand portfolios Lopez and Mayer once controlled. Questions swirl around the executive team. Meyer Birkenrode's resume, once touted as evidence of turnaround expertise, now faces scrutiny for gaps and exaggerations. Ty Lopez, for his part, has gone silent. No new videos, no public response to the most damning allegations. The court dockets fill with motions and counterclaims, but for hundreds of families, the wait for answers drags on. Justice, if it comes, is still somewhere ahead, just out of reach. The SEC calls it $112 million, a Ponzi scheme, 660 victims, savings gone, one family's future erased. Today, trust in legacy brands is easier to buy than to earn. RadioShack survived 94 years. It could not survive the man who said he was saving it.